In every shadow, a story waits to be told. Welcome to Dark Eerie Chronicles, where your nightmares become our stories. I've always believed that every house in New Orleans has a story. Some are sweet, some tragic, and some just shouldn't be told. Back in the summer of 2020, I was living alone in this old shotgun-style house in the Bywater district. It was one of those quirky rentals. Paint peeling off the porch, warped wood floors, high ceilings with fans that groaned when they spun. But it had character, charm, and for someone like me, trying to work remotely during the lockdown, it was perfect. Or at least, I thought it was. My work, graphic design for a tech company, meant I could live wherever, so I packed up from Atlanta and moved down to NOLA. Always loved the city, the vibe, the food, the weirdness. It didn't take long for the weird to start. It began with the walls. I know that sounds strange, but the first few nights I kept hearing tapping, like faint knocks. It wasn't rhythmic. It wasn't rats either. I know what rats sound like, and this was slower, intentional, like someone gently tapping their nail against plaster. I figured it was the old wood contracting, maybe termites, something. But it wasn't every night. It was only when things got quiet, like dead quiet, after midnight. And then the smell started. This damp, sour stench that would creep in like wet newspapers and mildew, but worse. I scrubbed that house top to bottom, poured bleach down the drains, checked under the house for dead animals. Nothing. Still, the smell came and went like a tide. And it always came right before the knocking. I remember one night in particular, July 2nd. I was on the couch, watching some old true crime doc on my laptop, headphones on, lights low. It was about 12:30 a.m. when I felt this sudden draft of cold air wash over my legs, like a freezer door opened. I paused my video, took off the headphones. The house was silent. And then, tap, tap, tap. 3 knocks, coming from the wall directly behind the couch. I swear to God, it was like it was right in the wall. Not on it. In it. I stood up, stared at the spot. My heart was racing, but I told myself maybe it was a loose pipe. Maybe the neighbors. Hell, maybe it was my imagination. Then my phone buzzed. It was a text from my landlord, Marie. Sweet old woman who lived 2 streets over. Only texted if it was something urgent. You alone tonight? I frowned. Weird question. Yeah, why? She replied almost instantly. Just heard something strange on my end, like a woman crying coming through the pipes. You okay? I swear my blood went cold. I didn't hear any crying, but the fact that she did, and that it came through the pipes. I didn't sleep that night. Left the lights on, sat up, waiting to hear something. But it was quiet until 4:17 a.m. That's when the crying started. It was soft at first, like someone down the street, muffled, but then it got louder, closer. It was coming from the kitchen, and the weirdest part, it sounded like it was coming from the sink. I tiptoed over, barefoot, barely breathing. The crying stopped the second I flicked on the kitchen light. Dead silence. The sink was dry, empty, but the smell was back. Stronger than ever, like something had died in the pipes. I called Marie the next morning and told her everything. She went quiet for a second and said, "Honey, I don't want to scare you, but that house, it's got history." She told me back in the 90s, there was a woman who lived there. Her name was Celeste. She was a music teacher, lived alone, never bothered anyone. Then one day she just vanished. Left her keys, her purse, everything. Cops never found a trace. No forced entry, no signs of struggle. And the weirdest part, the neighbors kept saying they heard music, piano, coming from the house for weeks after she was gone. But the house was empty. I didn't know what to say. I felt sick. Marie said, "Look, you don't gotta stay. I got a spare room here if it gets too much." I thanked her, but I stayed. I don't know why. Pride? Curiosity? Mistake. The following week, things got worse. I'd wake up with scratches, little ones, on my arms, my legs. At first, I thought it was mosquitoes, or maybe I'd brushed up against something, but then I started dreaming. Or I thought I was dreaming. I'd see this woman standing in the hallway, just a silhouette, long hair, head tilted, and she'd whisper something over and over. I could never understand what. One night, I jolted awake, 3:12 a.m., sweating, heart pounding. There she was, standing at the foot of my bed. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. She leaned in, closer, her face still shadowed, and whispered, "It's in the walls." Then she vanished. I screamed so loud the neighbors called the police. When they arrived, I was a mess, crying, shaking. I told them everything, and to my surprise, one of the officers, a younger guy, said, "You're not the first tenant who's called about this house." He didn't elaborate. The next morning, I packed a bag and left. Moved into Marie's spare room for a while. But before I left for good, I went back one last time. I needed to see what was in the walls, to prove to myself that I wasn't crazy. I brought a hammer and a flashlight, started in the hallway, where I saw her most. I knocked on the wall. Hollow. I hit it with the hammer, broke through the plaster, and that's when the smell hit me. Rot, decay, death. I peeled back more of the wall, my hands shaking, and there it was. A cavity. Inside it was fabric, bones, and a necklace. The necklace had a small charm on it, an old piano key. It was her. It was Celeste. She'd been in the walls the whole time, stuffed, hidden, forgotten. That house wasn't haunted, it was screaming. I never went back. The cops reopened the case, no idea who did it. But the landlord, Marie, she passed away 2 weeks later. Heart attack, they said. But the last thing she texted me before she died, it wasn't just her in that house. Be careful. Not everything rests when it's found. What happened in 2001 still messes with my head, but I'm finally putting it out there. Maybe just saying it out loud will help. Back then, I was 22, living alone in Colorado Springs. I had just finished college, wasn't sure what I wanted to do yet, so I worked nights at a bar downtown and spent my days drawing, playing PlayStation, and pretending I had it all figured out. My folks had moved down to Arizona the year before. The place I was renting was this older house on the west side of town. 2 bedrooms, real creaky floors, wood-paneled walls. That musty smell you only get with old Colorado homes. You know the kind. I liked it. Quiet. Cheap. Bit run down, but cozy. I'd only been there 2 months when it started. It began with the lights, not flickering. That's too simple. These would fade. Slowly. Like someone was turning a dimmer knob. Sometimes just one room. Sometimes the whole house. Then they'd blink back to full brightness like nothing happened. It wasn't the power. I had an electrician buddy come take a look. Breakers were fine, no issues with the grid. Then the TV started acting weird. And I don't mean static. I'm talking full-blown glitches. Like the picture freezing, the audio stretching into a high-pitched whine. One night I popped in my Scream VHS and halfway through the screen just froze. And then suddenly jumped to the last scene with Ghostface. Without me touching a thing, I chalked it up to the tape being old, until the VCR ejected the tape by itself, right in front of me, with a loud click, just spit it out. That was the first night I felt like I wasn't alone in that house. The worst part? The moved objects. At first it was harmless stuff. My sketchbook wouldn't be where I left it. A kitchen drawer open that I knew I'd closed. But one night I came home from a shift at the bar and found the hallway mirror on the floor, face down. It hadn't shattered, but it was ice cold to the touch, like it had been sitting in a freezer. And then I noticed the bedroom door. It was wide open. I always closed it before leaving. I thought maybe someone had broken in. I grabbed a wrench from the kitchen drawer and checked every inch of that place. Closets, under the bed, even the attic access. Nothing. No sign of forced entry. Everything else was untouched, but something felt off, like I'd walked into a room that had just been occupied. The next day, I noticed something even stranger. There was a smell in the house, like burnt hair, faint but present, almost metallic, like when you short a wire or burn plastic. It clung to my clothes. It wouldn't go away, no matter how much I aired out the place. That night, I was lying in bed when my alarm clock suddenly reset itself to 12 o'clock. Not blinking, it was solid. I watched it for a few seconds. Then the seconds started counting backward. I know how that sounds, but I swear on everything, it was going in reverse. The following night was the one I won't ever forget. It started around 3:15 a.m. I woke up, suddenly freezing cold. My breath was visible in the air. The heater was on. I checked the thermostat. It said 72. But the room felt like a damn walk-in freezer. Then every single light in the house turned on. At once, I heard them. The clicks, the buzz, the low hum. And then the TV turned on by itself. No picture, just black screen. But I could hear something. A voice, garbled, like it was trying to speak but couldn't. The audio was underwater. I leaned in, trying to make it out. And then, the screen lit up. Just for a second. A flash of a face. Burnt, twisted, screaming. Then, black. TV off, lights out, dead silence. And then I heard the sound of the closet door creaking open. I didn't go check. I couldn't. I just stayed in bed, clutching that wrench like it would do anything. I don't know how long I stayed frozen like that, but I heard it moving, underneath the floorboards. Not crawling, not scratching, but humming. A low electrical hum, like a voltage surge moving through the house, room to room. And when it reached my door, everything stopped. The silence was heavier than any sound. And then the power came back on. Lights, TV, clock. All normal. All acting like nothing had ever happened. I moved out the next morning. Didn't even wait for my lease to end. Left the deposit. Packed my car. Didn't look back. But a week later, I got a call from Nate, the guy I'd called earlier to check the wiring. He'd stopped by the house to pick up a few of my sketchbooks I'd forgotten. While he was inside, his watch battery exploded on his wrist. Literally cracked and leaked. Then he saw the mirror in the hallway, rehung, clean, not a speck of dust on it. Only problem? It wasn't the same mirror. It was oval. Mine had been square. He said he looked into it for a second, and his reflection smiled at him, even though he wasn't smiling. He bolted out. You ever get the feeling someone's watching you, but when you turn around, there's no one there? Back in '93, I'd just turned 27, got out of a long relationship, bounced around for a while, then decided to take a break from everything. City life, friends, even my job. I needed a reset. So I found this old rental house on the outskirts of Savannah. Quiet neighborhood, oaks dripping with Spanish moss, cicadas humming all night long. The place was one of those big, creaky southern homes, built in the late 1800s with wood floors that groaned when you so much as breathed wrong. Tall windows, wraparound porch, and shutters that slapped in the wind if you didn't latch them. It was dirt cheap, like suspiciously cheap. But I was broke and burned out, so I didn't ask questions. The landlord was this older woman named Miss Lorraine. She was sweet, real Southern Belle type. But there was something about her, like she was always holding something back. When I signed the lease, she said, "There's a back room upstairs, my daughter's old bedroom. It's locked. You can open it if you'd like, but I don't recommend it." I chuckled, thought she was being dramatic. "Why's that?" She looked at me, dead serious. That room don't like to be disturbed. That should have been my first clue to turn around and get the hell out of there. But I didn't. I moved in with my dog, Brownie, an old beagle mutt I'd had since high school. First couple weeks were peaceful. I'd read a lot, walked the marsh trails, write in a journal like I was Hemingway or something. House was quiet, almost too quiet. Then, one night, Brownie woke me up around 2:15. He was standing at the edge of the bed, staring at the hallway, ears perked, growling low in his throat. I mumbled, "You all right, bud?" He didn't even blink. He was fixed on the hallway, dead still, hackles raised. I got up, looked out. Nothing. But right then, I noticed something weird. The door to the guest room, the one I'd never opened, was unlatched. Not wide open, just barely cracked. Now I know I never touched it. It was locked, had been since I moved in. I walked over, slowly, and pushed the door open. The room was freezing, like someone left a window open in January. The air felt thick, like it hadn't been breathed in for years. It was a little girl's room. Faded wallpaper, a worn twin bed with a porcelain doll sitting dead center. Rocking chair in the corner. That thing was swaying gently when I stepped in, like someone had just gotten up. I stood there, not sure what I was looking for, but then I heard it. A whisper, right behind me. "Don't!" I spun around, nothing. Brownie was whining now, pawing at the hall like he wanted out of the house. I backed out of the room, shut the door, and locked it again. Next morning, I figured I must have dreamed it. But when I looked at the door, there were scratch marks around the handle, tiny ones, like from a kid's fingernails. That night, I couldn't sleep. The air in the house felt different, heavy, oppressive, like walking through water. Around 2:15 again, on the dot, Brownie started growling. This time I stayed in bed. I was too damn scared to move. And then I heard it. That soft creak of a rocking chair. And a voice. This time clearer. A young girl's voice whispering, "Get out of my room." It was right outside my bedroom door. I shot up, grabbed the baseball bat I kept under the bed, and yanked the door open. The hallway was empty. Silent. Still. But the door to the guest room? Wide open. I didn't sleep that night. Next day, I called Miss Lorraine. I said, "Look, something weird's going on in this house. That guest room. I think someone's in there." She went quiet. Then said, "It's starting again." I asked, "What's starting again?" She sighed. "My daughter, Lily. She died in that room. Took her own life in 78. She was only 16. She used to say something lived in the walls, that it watched her sleep. We thought she was suffering from something. Mentally, you know. But after she died, things started happening. My throat was dry. Like what? Sounds. Voices. Doors opening on their own. Animals disappearing. I froze. "Animals?" She said. "We had a cat, then a dog. Both went missing. Same time of night. Always around 2:15. That's when I realized I hadn't seen Brownie since the night before. I searched the whole damn house, yard, neighbor's lawn, called and called, nothing. Gone. Just like that. That night, I slept in the living room with all the lights on. I didn't even go upstairs. Around 2:15, I felt it. The room changed. The temperature dropped, like someone opened the fridge door. And then I heard it. Footsteps. Coming down the stairs. Slow. Deliberate. Heavy. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. My hands were shaking. Then, that same voice. But not soft this time. Not a whisper. Screamed. "You shouldn't be here." All the lights went out. I don't remember much after that. I must have blacked out. Next thing I knew, sun was pouring through the blinds and everything was back to normal. Except Brownie. He was gone. No sign of him. Like he never existed. I left the house that day, drove straight to my cousin's place in Atlanta. I I never went back. I didn't even grab my stuff. Left everything. Books, clothes, pictures. Years later, I heard the place got torn down. Someone said there was a fire, but no one knows how it started. Miss Lorraine passed away in '99. Never rented it again after me. Sometimes I wonder if anyone else ever heard that voice, or if anyone ever told Lily they were sorry. But here's the part that really gets me. A month after I left, I got a letter. No return address. Inside was a photograph of me, asleep in bed, taken from inside that guest room. This was back in the fall of 2017, the first night I stayed at my aunt's house. My Aunt Deb offered me her place in Kentucky, said she was headed to Florida for a few months to visit her daughter and needed someone to keep an eye on the house and her 2 cats. I thought, hell yeah, free rent, peace and quiet, and time to get my life straight. Her house was a big old 2-story farmhouse way out past Edmonton, Kentucky. It sat at the end of a gravel road surrounded by trees that looked like they'd been there before the Civil War. The kind of place where your phone signal dies before you even hit the mailbox. At first, I loved it. No neighbors, no noise, just me, the cats, and the sound of the wind. But it didn't take long before weird things started happening. And not in your typical horror movie way. No bumps in the night, no doors slamming. It was subtle. It started with the layout. I'd been in this house plenty of times before. Holidays, birthdays, that kind of thing. So I knew how many rooms it had. But one night, about a week after I moved in, I noticed something strange. I was walking down the upstairs hallway toward the bathroom when I saw a door on the left side that I didn't remember. It was just there, like it had always been. I stopped and stared at it for a while, thinking maybe I'd somehow just forgotten. But that door looked old, dusty. Same antique brass knob as the others, but this one looked like no one had touched it in years. I opened it. Inside was a small room, empty except for a single wooden chair facing the far wall. The wallpaper was peeling, and the air felt heavy, thick, like a room that had been shut off for decades. I closed it right back and chalked it up to me being tired or stressed. Maybe it was always there and I'd just never paid attention. But the next morning when I walked down the same hall, the door was gone. Gone. Like it never existed. I even ran my hand along the wall where it had been. Seamless. Nothing but paint and plaster. I thought I was losing it. Maybe I was. But things only got worse. That night, I heard one of the cats meowing from upstairs. Long, drawn-out howls like it was stuck. I followed the sound, and wouldn't you know it, the door was back, wide open. The cat was inside, sitting on that same chair, staring at the wall like it was hypnotized. I called to her. She didn't budge. When I stepped inside, I swear to you, the air was colder. Not just cold. Wrong. Like the air in there didn't belong to this world. It felt damp. I scooped up the cat and left. Didn't sleep that night. I told myself it was just stress, that maybe I'd had a few too many beers before bed, that I'd imagined the whole thing. But that door, it kept showing up. Not every night. Just enough to make me question reality. And each time, the room looked a little different. One night, there was a mirror on the wall. Another time, I found muddy footprints leading to the chair, but never away from it. I stopped going upstairs. Started sleeping on the couch with the cats. I'd keep the TV on just for some kind of background noise, anything to drown out that feeling of being watched. Then one night, probably 2 a.m, I saw the room again. But this time, it wasn't upstairs. It was on the first floor. I was headed to the kitchen, and there it was, just off the hallway where there used to be a pantry. Same old wooden door, cracked open like it was waiting for me. I should have turned around, but I didn't. Something about it. It pulled at me. Not curiosity, not fear. Something older. I stepped inside, and this time the chair wasn't empty. There was a woman sitting there, pale skin, long dark hair that hung over her face like seaweed. She didn't move, just sat. And then slowly she lifted her head. Her eyes were black. Not just dark, black. Like holes in her skull. And her mouth moved. No sound, just lips moving. I ran, didn't sleep, didn't eat. I even tried to leave the house. But every time I grabbed my keys, I'd find myself waking up hours later, still in the house, on the couch like I'd blacked out. The cats were gone after that night. I never found them. No blood, no fur, just gone. I finally called Aunt Deb. I didn't want to sound like a lunatic, but I told her everything. You know what she said? She told me there used to be a room in that house, a nursery. But it was sealed off after her older sister Evelyn died in there as a child. They walled it up, pretended it never happened. Nobody ever talked about Evelyn again. But sometimes the room came back. It shows itself when someone's alone, Deb said, her voice flat. That house, it remembers grief, and it feeds off it. She told me to leave immediately. I did, packed what I could, left the rest, drove all the way to Lexington that night. But here's the kicker. 3 weeks later, I went back to grab the last of my stuff, just during the day. Bright, sunny afternoon. The house felt normal, until I walked past the hallway and saw a picture hanging on the wall. A black and white photo of a little girl sitting in a chair. Same chair from the room. Same hair, same black eyes. Only this time, she was smiling. It was the summer of 2021. Hot, sticky air even at midnight, and the cicadas outside never shut up. I had just moved into my grandmother's old house in Statesboro, Georgia. She passed the year before, and the place sat empty since. No one in the family wanted it. Too many memories, they said. But I was broke, fresh out of college, and needed somewhere rent-free to get my shit together. The house is this one-story brick home on the edge of a wooded patch, real quiet, with just a single neighbor to the left, and thick woods to the right. And when I say woods, I mean that southern kind. Tall pines, kudzu vines strangling everything, the kind of woods where sound just disappears. Anyway, it was a Thursday night and I was home alone. My roommate CJ had gone to Atlanta for the weekend. Left that morning, said he'd be back late Sunday. So it was just me, a leftover pizza, and a 6-pack of cheap beer. I remember I was halfway through a documentary on missing hikers. Real uplifting, right? When I heard it. A knock. Not on the door. On the window. Now listen, I've seen enough movies to know that ain't never a good sign. But this knock wasn't like a sharp, hey, let me in knock. It was this soft, barely there tap, tap, tap. Like someone wasn't sure if they wanted to get my attention or just watch me jump. I muted the TV and listened. Nothing. I got up, walked over to the window by the kitchen, pulled the curtain back. Nobody, not even a raccoon, just the porch light flickering like it always did. So I chalked it up to nerves and too many documentaries, locked the window just in case, and sat back down. Then about 10 minutes later, I kid you not, it happened again. But this time, it was at the back window, in the laundry room. That part of the house was completely dark. I stood still. My heart started going like I'd just sprinted. I didn't want to go look, but I also didn't want to be the idiot that ignores it and ends up on the damn news. So I grabbed the bat from beside the fridge. Yeah, I keep a bat. I live in Georgia and watch too many horror movies. And crept down the hallway. Laundry room window was open just a crack, which was weird as hell, 'cause I never opened that window. Too many bugs. But I figured maybe CJ had done it and forgot. I shut it, locked it, took a peek outside. Still nothing. Just trees and moonlight. But I swear on everything, I felt eyes on me, like something in those woods was watching, waiting. I backed away, turned on every damn light in the house, and tried to shake the feeling. Told myself it was probably an animal, maybe a branch hitting the glass. But when I went back to the living room, the front door was unlocked. Now that stopped me cold. I know I locked that door. I'm obsessive about it. I double-check it every night like a ritual. My stomach dropped. I grabbed my phone and started walking real slow, room to room, whispering, "Hello?" No answer. Nothing out of place. No signs of anyone inside. But when I got to my room, the closet door was open. Not all the way, just enough to see the crack of darkness inside. And that's another thing. I never leave it open. Not since I was a kid. I stared at it for a solid 30 seconds, waiting for movement. Some kind of sound. Anything. Then, like an idiot, I reached forward and yanked it open. Empty. I exhaled, laughed a little at myself, called myself a jackass, and shut the closet. But I still couldn't shake the feeling. So I did what anyone does when they're freaked out. I called CJ. "Yo," he said, half asleep. "Hey, did you unlock the front door before you left?" "Nah, I locked up. Why?" I told him what happened. He was quiet for a second. Then he said, "You sure it was a knock? Maybe the wind?" It wasn't the wind. I ended up staying on the phone with him while I did another walkthrough of the house. Nothing weird, nothing missing, everything locked. Still, I couldn't sleep that night. I left all the lights on, curled up on the couch, and kept the bat within reach. By around 3:30 a.m., I was drifting off when I heard it again. Tap, tap, tap. But this time, it was the glass sliding door at the back. I froze, didn't move, didn't breathe. Then came the second sound. Click. The lock on the door, it clicked open. I jumped up and ran to it, slid it open fast, bat raised. Nothing there. The yard was still, porch lights still flickering. Not a soul in sight. I looked at the lock. It wasn't broken. It wasn't loose. It had been unlocked from the inside. I slammed it shut and called 911. Cops came about 20 minutes later, did a full sweep. No footprints, no forced entry. They were polite, but I could tell they thought I was jumpy. One of them even said, "You sure you didn't dream it? Could have been sleep paralysis." Nope, I was awake. They left. I didn't sleep a wink. Next morning, I did what I should have done earlier, started checking the place for anything out of place. That's when I found it. Inside the crawl space under the house, just off the side where the vent was busted open, was a duffel bag. Inside it, canned food, a flashlight, clothes, and a notebook. Pages filled with scribbles, paranoid stuff. Ramblings about people watching, and the house being safe. And don't let them find me. Some of the pages were dated from months ago. Whoever it was, they'd been living under the house, watching us, maybe waiting for us to leave, maybe coming in when we weren't home. One of the last entries chilled me to the bone. It said, "He sleeps in the room with the posters. The closet creaks at night when I move too much. I need to be quieter." My room, my closet. I moved out that day. Cops never found the person. They think he was maybe some homeless guy or someone hiding out. I don't care. All I know is, next time I hear tapping on a window, I'm not going to check, because whatever it is might already be inside. You've been listening to Dark Eerie Chronicles.